Okay guys, so we want to talk about improving your running, and I just want to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to look at hip flexors again today because they're really important. What I find with your elite runners is that very commonly they're naturally very sort of long through their middle and they're able to sort of get up very tall, and what that does with running is it enables you to initiate movement from higher up in the body, so it's sort of about that level there. The less elite runners will often be very hippy. They'll run from their hips. So if you look at positional type of running or chi type of running, you can be aware of that using your length and starting to initiate from higher. That's all well and good, but if you don't actually have the length in your body to do that, then you will actually be limited in your capabilities. So what I want to talk about is how you can actually improve that yourself. Because it's really important. And I always go back to anatomy. You think about these hip flexors. The name of this hip flexor is iliopsoas because it's made up of two sort of primary components to the muscle. One being psoas, which runs from sort of T12 down to L5S1, and then in onto lesser trochanter. The other part of the muscle that often gets forgotten about is the iliacus muscle. So if you think about this sort of brim of the pelvis, this iliac crest, it's a big flat muscle that is in the inside brim of that hip, and then again it comes down in onto that lesser trochanter. So if it gets stuck, then it will sort of lock up your hips, it'll make you less efficient. When you look at stretches, it's very hard to stretch. So I'm actually going to show you how I would actually lengthen that in the clinic, and then later on we'll talk about how you can start to replicate that as well. So we'll have a look at hip flexor length. So we'll go into Thomas test position, and then just slowly back. You're right. So this is your hip flexor length here. So it should be at least even on that 90 degrees, and you've probably got about 5 degrees below that 90, which is probably pretty average. Now what we're going to do, we'll slide you up. And we'll just tuck a little towel in. This is how I treat. I don't really expect you guys to do this at home. We get our seatbelt. Seatbelts are really useful things. And we just hook it in. And then what I can do there is I've got it locked in. I've got a hand above on the hip, hand just below, and I'm just distracting. So I'm heading that way. So I'm just going to stretch out. You're right. And I'll hold that just for a couple of seconds, and then I'll control it back, and then I might do a couple of those. So I'll do another one, and then just relax, and then one more. So usually a really comfy thing to do for people. Okay, so what we're actually doing there is really dragging out this ball and socket type of joint, so we're giving it a stretch through that iliacus. Then we'll switch around again. Got you down. And we'll just have a look at that range. So straight away, we've got sort of 10-15 degrees. We've just increased that range. So handy to be able to start to think of ways that you can lengthen out iliacus. It's almost a distraction type of technique. I want to show you exactly how you can do that at home, and we'll do that in just a minute. Okay, so when you're trying to free up your hips yourself for running so that you can really have that length and have that better initiation of movement from higher up in your body, you can use a couple of things. I usually like the seat belts because they're really rigid. So what I do is I make sure I don't have a lot of slack, and you can use anything, guys. You can use a balustrade, pole. Very commonly we use the weights racks, and tuck them around. And then I'll clip that in, and I'll go quite high through my groin, and then I don't have a lot of slack there because I can actually use my leverage to distract that hip. So if you think about that ball in there, I'm distracting it laterally. I'm going to hold that for about sort of 4 or 5 seconds and then relax off, and then I can go again. So as long as I don't have a lot of length there, that's really quite good, and I can get a real good leverage on it. So I might do that 4 or 5 times. That again will allow me to be taller. It'll help with my hip extension. It'll probably prevent me from doing my joint capsules, my labral tears, things like that. If you don't have a seatbelt, a lot of you won't. A lot of people will often have the stretch bands, and they're really good. They've just got a little bit of play in them. So if you have a look at that sort of stretchy stuff, again, probably makes it a bit more comfy, but doesn't give you the same sort of rigid distraction that the seatbelt would. But it's the same thing, guys. So I'll hook that around the balustrade. See, I've got more length there, so my leverage isn't as good onto it, but it's still an excellent little tool. So I can distract sideways, relax, same thing again, and really get that going. So start thinking of your hip flexors, start understanding your body. I always like to be very much aware of the iliopsoas and then my iliacus, because you'll treat them slightly differently, you'll manage them slightly differently. Start really improving your technique so that you're really developing a toolkit that you can use to really improve your performance and stay on the field.